What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Michael, host of the Smoke Pit podcast, joined with Jake as our co-host. And I don't even want to refer to you as a co-host. It's kind of like a secondary host, honestly. But what's up, man? How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Glad to be here. Starting things off, bringing in our first guest. Excited to get things rolling.
Yeah, man, and it doesn't get better than this because we're literally bringing in a like-minded individual, another podcast host. So, Josh, a.k.a. Toofpete. How you doing, boss?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to be. I didn't realize this was the very first episode of the podcast, and so I feel like nobody could ever beat me. I feel like I'm definitely the number. I'm literally the number one guest, and nobody can ever beat that. You could literally have Shaq on this podcast, and he can't beat me because I was number one. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
Exactly. There's never going to be a 0 or -1 host, right?
Right.
So it just doesn't get better than that. So we're just going to do brief introductions since it is the very first episode. So I'll go, and then Jake, you'll go, and then Josh, of course, we'll give you the floor. My name is Michael. Prior to this, I was the podcast host for Kansas City Pioneers. We were doing a podcast over there. That was pretty sweet, about 25 episodes. Prior to that, I was in a team called Orbit, a bunch of little trick shots, you know what I'm saying? Boop, boop, boop. Still have the Orbit tattoo on my body, which I should have never got, but hey, it is what it is, right? We were young and doing our thing, and I was doing the podcast for them. So I got a little bit of podcast experience, but in no way, shape, or form am I saying that I'm some sweet podcast host. I'm crazy, right? Just enjoying it, having a good time, and absolutely blessed to be doing this for Regiment GG. Jake, the floor's yours.
Yeah, so as you said, my name's Jake. Previous to this, I've done some light casting on a few different tournaments, things like that for the gaming communities. Mike and I are both prior military service. I'm sure we'll get into that a lot more as we talk about things in the further episodes and things like that. But I do a little bit of light streaming, gaming, all kinds of different stuff. And just kind of excited to get going and meet some interesting people, talk about their lives.
Yes, sir. All right, Josh, floor's yours.
Jake, you said you wanted to meet interesting people, so now I'm worried. Like, I feel like I have an expectation to live up to.
Listen, Josh, you already said you're better than Shaq, okay?
Because I'm number one chronologically on the podcast, not because of content. No, my name is Josh Beard. I go by Toofpete in the gaming world. I go by Josh Beard in the real world and in my radio career. So I was an airborne crypto linguist in the Air Force, so I was in for 6 years. I got out and realized I didn't want to do anything serious anymore. So my entire life, at least job-wise, career-wise, and so my entire life has been dedicated to pursuing passions and turning my passions into a career. So I worked in sports radio from 2014 until now. I worked at Sports Radio 610 in Houston for a really long time. I recently started working with ESPN 97.5 here in Houston. And then I started streaming a little over a year ago. I do a lot of sports talk on my stream, but I do gaming as well. Hit partner before my 1.5 year mark on Twitch, and I signed a contract with Twitch and the NFL to do Thursday night football co-streams and stuff. So it's been a nuts wild ride since I got out. It's been a lot of really cool stuff. I've done a lot of really cool things, and I think being able to do stuff like this with Regiment and marry my past with my present is probably, it's been some of the cooler experiences that I've been able to have so far in my streaming career.
And boom, done. Episode's over. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that was great.
So
that was good. Good job, guys. Yeah. Whew, didn't even need to. Normally, I need like 3 or 4 or 5 takes to like nail it, but we knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, that was perfectly good. All right, shout out to the sponsor. No, all right. So I want to cut into the military stuff for a second here, right? And the reason I want to cut into this specific portion is a lot of us kind of get lost in translation, I guess you could say. And for me, I'm security forces, right, in the United States Air Force, and I can't imagine anything other than being in the military and getting told, hey, are you ready for the next tour of duty? Okay, get out there. And that's it, right? And everybody else kind of does a bunch of crazy stuff. I just can't imagine it. So for you being a
airborne crypto linguist, airborne cryptologic linguist. Yeah,
Okay, so
it's a mouthful, yeah.
Yeah, that is. Airborne caught me right off the bat, and I'm like, oh, so he's airborne now. So what does that look like for you? What's that?
If I told you, I'd have to kill you.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting. You know, when I first knew I wanted to join the military, I have a family background, and my grandfather retired as a linguist, chief master sergeant. He was in for 27 years. I'm actually about to head out in like a month and a half. I'm gonna go out to Goodfellow, where they're naming one of Goodfellow. If you've ever been out there in San Angelo, they've got planes out at the front of the base. They're about to name one of the planes after my grandfather. They're having like a whole ceremony and everything. It's very cool. So he's gonna do that. Then my uncle retired as a lieutenant colonel. He was nuclear ops, whatever that was, and then did some other like officer bullshit. I don't know what officers do. Officers do all like the important brainy shit. We did all like the groundwork grunt shit. So they did some really cool stuff, and I knew from a pretty young age that I wanted to go into the military. I knew as soon as I got out of high school, there was like, I tried college. My parents wanted me to do college, but I very quickly realized I wanted to get the hell out of the small town I grew up in and join. And like originally I wanted to go in for combat control in the Air Force. So I took the pass test and failed it the first time because of the swim. They said that I touched too many times, even though I nailed the swim. Like I've never been, even in my best shape, I've never been a smaller guy. Like when I got out of basic, I was still like 210 pounds with like 0% body fat. But I've never been a small guy. I have dense bones. I sink to the bottom of pools. It's very hurtful. So I took the pass test and I failed it, and I was going to take it again. But then my grandfather, my recruiter, were like, hey, why don't you take the D-Lab, the Defense Language Aptitude Battery? Check this thing out. Just see what you can do. Oh, I knocked it out of the park. And then what they don't tell you, the recruiters don't tell you, is that whenever you take the D-Lab, if you knock it out of the park, you're going to be a linguist. They're like, okay, cool, you're a linguist now. I'm like, oh, well, what about the pass test? He's like, don't worry about it. You're a linguist now. I'm like, what? And then they gave me my favorite part was they gave me my dream sheet of languages that I could learn whenever I joined. I was super excited about that. And yeah, my wish list of languages, Arabic wasn't even one of them. Guess which one I got? It was absolutely Arabic. And so yeah, it was 2 years. It was 2 years of basic training and tech school. My tech school was 18 months long. I was out in Monterey, California, did some really cool stuff there. And then I had to go through aircrew school, did aircrew stuff. I was stationed at Offutt in Omaha, and that's where we flew out of. Typically, like if I was stateside, when I was stateside, it was just fly every couple of weeks just for like a training flight to keep the juices flowing, and then working in an office otherwise. Where I got to work in a skiff, and so like here's the thing, I actually can't talk about, or I don't know now at this point because I'm so old and I've been out for so long, what I can and can't talk about. But I just did some really cool shit. We did some sneaky shit and supported some really cool missions. So I loved what I did. The hard part was having kids. And the rotations for linguists were pretty frequent. Like where linguists are going out 3 months on, 3 months off. So they go out to the deed for 3 months. They come home for 3 months. They go out for 3 months. But then whenever you start to get up in higher positions on the platform itself, because we flew on the RJ, when you get up in higher, all of a sudden you're there for 5 months. You're home for 2 months. You're there for 6 months. And I knew that wasn't something that I wanted to do. But the day-to-day of the job, I absolutely loved, and the people that I went through. I mean, especially when you go through a tech school that long, a career that's that close knit, when I first got done with all my tech school and stuff, there were only 2 stations you could go to. You go to Offutt or you go out to Tucson, and those are the only 2 places at the time that you could go. And and so it's a really tight knit community, and it was I really loved it, man. I loved it. I moved back to Texas because I thought it'd be better for my kids. It'd be better for my wife for me not to be gone so much. But I miss it. I still feel like it was 5 months ago that I got out, and I miss it every single day. Nice.
That seems like it'd be cool. That'd be right down my alley, honestly, being able to just kind of get away. Because I mean, I'm single, dude, and you know, now I'm a staff sergeant, dude, and I have so many options, and I'm like, man, where do I want to take myself? But you know, we'll see what happens. But Jake, what were you gonna say something?
Yeah. So, and you actually touched on a pretty good thing. Is like the being single thing is it's so much easier to do that military lifestyle when you don't have a wife, girlfriend, especially kids, like. Because there are those things that are like, well, like I get to have all this fun and go all these places, do all this stuff, and it's like, but it's not all about me. You know, you have to make that time for them, and you can't always do that if you're deployed overseas or maybe you're stateside, but you're working 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. It's just, you don't make the schedule, they do.
What's crazy about that too? I hate this chair. I don't know why it does that. My buddy, so when I got selected for my deployment, my buddy was also going to get selected. And he said that they called him and they said, hey man, we're not going to let you go though, because you're married. And
wow.
I'm not going to, dude, I can't say any names, but this man goes, yo, can I file a divorce right now? And then kind of reinstate him. We're done. Dude, I felt so bad for the guy, man, but it was kind of funny. But he actually just went out to somewhere else, and he literally got picked up for deployment immediately.
Yep.
And I'm so stoked for him, man. Because we were up in Minot, North Dakota, man. Nobody gets out of there.
Why not Minot, baby?
Why not Minot? Dude, I got pulled out of there, though. Man, it's actually not that bad. I'm not going to bullshit anybody. It's really not that bad. It really is what you make it. That's everywhere, right? Just be on your shit. Take care of your business. You'll be fine. If you're going there. But I somehow got pulled out of there. And then as soon as he left, man, they were like, yeah, you haven't been deployed in 1,000 days or something? And they're like, yeah, you're out of here. And he's stoked, man. And I'm so happy for the guy, man. And he's going somewhere sweet too. I wish I could talk about it, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I forget that I can't. I'm so open. I'm an overshare. I'm a classic overshare as a human being, and that's why I got into the career field that I got into afterwards, right? And so now I have to do math in my head. I'm 11 years removed, a little over 11 years removed, and I forget about that whole it's so common to be like, yeah, I can't talk about it, OPSEC, we got to make sure that we're not talking about it. And so people are like, where are you stationed? I'm like, I was stationed at, no, probably not gonna tell you. It's so tough, dude. But I was engaged. I literally proposed to my wife at my basic training graduation. I was that guy, right? Just super basic. Don't want to leave the girl behind, bro. So I was either engaged or married the entire time I was in the military. So I don't even know what it's like to be single and live that military life while single. And there were times when it was just me and my wife, it was a lot easier, right? I can handle a lot of that stuff, and she's super cool. And we spent, the first year that we were actually married, not even just the time we were engaged, the first year that we were married, she was still finishing up at Texas A&M. I was stationed, that was when I was doing language training in Monterey. So we were apart for about a year and a half before we ever actually got married, and then we were apart for another year after we got married, and it was tough, but I knew we'd be able to handle that military life as a married couple because we went through that really, really early on in our relationship. It's when you have the kids that gets tough. And I had a buddy, he got picked for a deployment. He'd only been home for 2 months from the last one, or 2.5 months from the last one he had gone on. His wife was literally about to give birth, and they delayed him because they were like, she's being induced in 2 days. Can we push back? So they let him push it back. His wife had their daughter, now their youngest, who is their daughter. And then the next day they sent him out. He didn't even get to, got to see, to me, that's the kind of stuff that's really hard. Once kids get involved, that's when it gets a little bit more difficult. Because look, my wife is awesome and I love her to death, but I have no problem being gone for 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
You can handle that, right? But it's the missing out on the growing of the kids. That's I think is one of the toughest things for a lot of guys.
Well, I mean, even if you take the adults and the parents out of it, like you said, you got together and you were together and you decided to get married while you were this was a decision that you guys, I assume, made together. And she knew going into. Okay,
she didn't know we were getting married. No, she didn't.
Well,
know.
no. I just mean being together with you.
I'm ready to propose to you.
Yeah, you probably didn't turn to her one day and were like, I'm actually gonna enlist by. She had there was some expectation of that, but the kids, they don't know that. They are born into the life and they have to just kind of go through it, and they don't have any say in the matter. They're just kind of there. So it's going to be a lot harder when they just kind of feel pulled. And I remember moving my kids from I lived in Japan for 4 years, so I pulled them across the ocean and back.
Yeah, see, that's tough, man. That's the kind of stuff my career field at the time was changing. Where like more duties were becoming available, different stations were becoming available, more missions were becoming available, and so like there's a question about, where are we going to end up? Do we get to are we really going to get to set down roots, or am I going to be moving my kids across the country to the East Coast, or are we moving to the West Coast? And so there's just stuff that it's tough, because I loved the lifestyle. I loved the people that I worked with. I loved the stability. I loved the security. There's so much. I loved what I did. The job was fucking sick. I loved it to death. But it's just those things get really, 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 really hard when you introduce all those family aspects into it. And that's ultimately why I made the decision to separate. I even thought about, why don't I go into one of these officer programs? If I'm going to stay long term, if I'm going to become career, why don't I go into an officer program or go back to school for 4 years and under an officer contract and then come back in as an officer? And ultimately we decided against that. But yeah, it's tough. I can't imagine moving my kids across an ocean and back. I have one friend, he just moved back to Omaha from the UK. And that's his second tour. That's his second stint in the UK. He's gone from Tucson to the UK to Omaha to the UK to Omaha now. And I'm just like, more power to you, dude. I can't imagine having to do that with it's hard enough getting my kids to listen to me now, right? I'm in one place. I am in Texas. I don't leave Texas, much to my chagrin, with the 105-degree heat right now. And I have a hard enough time getting them to buy into just behaving now. But if I'm introducing moving across countries and leaving friends and leaving schools and all these different factors, it just would have been so difficult. And I think it's incredible. The people who make it work, it was hard for me to fathom making it work. And the people who make it work, I have so much respect for them.
Yeah, cheers to you, by the way, man. That's incredible. I'm just glad that everything was kind of able to work out for you, and you're in this step of life that not a lot of people, reach, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Old age? Yeah, I know. That's what I feel. I just turned 36 and I feel like I'm 60.
Yeah, it's just it's a rough world out here, trying to meet people, because we're all kind of doing the same thing.
Yep.
We're all, I don't know. It's like we're all treating each other like dirt. But on that topic too, is speaking about how, in the military, we're always constantly moving all around, man. And some people just don't understand. But the beauty of it, though, is being able to go across and actually see what different things look like.
Yeah.
And in a, I don't know how I want to, being able to actually go somewhere and you end up seeing what true shit looks like. You know what I'm saying? People don't know what that is, but it's always I've always operated differently since I came back from where I went. And it's incredible, because I just don't complain like I used to. You know what I'm saying? And I don't take anything for granted, And it is beautiful, but everything's got its pros and cons. Being able to go see somewhere different, but then with the kiddos and everything, and trying to just it's tough trying to explain, why do we have to do this? Why are we going here? But so now we're talking about the linguist portion, right? You communicating with a lot of different people and all these different cultures and everything like that. Do you think that this has translated into what you do now and made everything that you do as far as podcasting easier?
Yes and no. Yeah, to a certain extent. Okay, honestly, you want to know what's helped me the most with my career in radio? The sitting around waiting for shit to happen. So obviously being a linguist and the skills that I learned being a linguist, I've learned to be, and the skills I learned from the military in general is learn to be really malleable, learn to be able to adapt to situations quickly. Once you find your mission, attack that mission with everything that you have. Those are skills that are invaluable to me. The linguist career field, learning how to communicate in different ways, learning how to communicate with different people, right? Those have been invaluable. But the thing that's helped me more than anything with my career in radio, with my career in streaming, with podcasting, is being bored during, we always talk about, it's hurry up and wait. Being bored during the wait sessions, right? When you're sitting around and you don't have shit to do and y'all are just shoot. I remember one time I was sitting there talking to some of my friends. We didn't have shit to do because there was a huge backlog in the linguist field for a while. So when I first got to Offutt, I couldn't immediately go do my training flights. There was it was a 4-month, 5-month wait. And so they didn't have anything for us to do. So they would literally put us in a room to study our language for 8 hours a day. And we're not fucking studying we kind of did a bit, but we're mostly just shooting the shit for 8 hours a day for months. We would just sit there and shoot. And one time we talked about, it'd be fucking cool. It'd be cool if we started this, found an island when we all got out and we started a society. We all do different jobs and we just trade those goods and services. And we realized, fuck, we're talking about communism. Shit. Communism sounds all these different the random games that we would come up with. The word games are flicking shit across a table or whatever dumb bullshit. Those quiet moments whenever I was in the Air Force, those moments where it was just me talking to a group of 3 people and you're just shooting the shit forever because you literally don't have anything to do other than fellowship with each other and create those bonds and create those relationships. And you start talking about the dumbest shit, why this video game is better, why this movie sucks ass, why the Cowboys are going to win a Super Bowl at some point is really a common one I had to argue with a lot of people. So that's where a lot of the sports stuff came from. But those are the moments that made me so good at broadcast, because you realize when you get into it, there's a lot of you have to be able to think off the cuff. You have to be able to mold and turn with a conversation at any time. And you have to be willing to be completely adaptable to a conversation of multiple people at any given moment. And nothing prepared me more for that than conversations in which I think this is the name of the podcast is perfect, because nothing molded me better for radio than being at the smoke pit, baby.
Yeah,
for sure. Dude, you could become best friends with somebody at a smoke pit. You're I've never seen this motherfucker before. Yeah, you can bum a cig. It is the best place that I learned to communicate with a wide variety of other people. Was at any smoke pit, at any base. Even when I stopped smoking, I would still go with people to the smoke pit, because you just sit there for 45 minutes to 5 hours, anywhere between. It was always that time frame, no shorter, sometimes longer. And you just have the dumbest, weirdest, best conversation. What superpower would you have? Well, no, fuck weather. I want to be able to transform into anything I want. That's what made me great at what I do now, because now I have the ability to just think off the top of my head and be able to flow within a conversation in a multitude of different ways. And I know it comes from those moments and those smoke pit moments in the Air Force.
Dude, I love that you mentioned that, because I have the best story about my military brother, dude. But the deployed smoke pits are even better too, because the rank doesn't exist. So you don't know who you're talking to, or the rank's there and just nobody cares, and you're just off the wall just going to town. But dude, my military brother, man, when I first came to Minot, I went out to the smoke pit, and this dude comes out and he's drunk, and he's just and I'm like, this
there's always one.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, this dude's
That was
annoying.
me. I was always the one. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, this dude's annoying, man. But whatever. The second time he's out there, and I'm like, fuck, man, why is he out here? The third time he's not there. The fourth time not there. Fifth time he's not there. And I think 6, 7 time I'm sitting there, and I'm like, man, where'd this guy go, yo? And then one day he shows up, and I'm like, "Arr!" And he's like, "Arr!" And we just start talking shit, dude, going to town. And he's telling me all these stories, and I'm like, okay, you know what? And then from there, man, we exchanged numbers, and we literally would text each other throughout the day. Smoke? Question mark? Smoke? And he'd be like, yeah. And we would just call each other names, man, and just run out to the smoke pit, smoke a cigarette, talk crap. And now, dude, this dude's literally my brother, man. I would literally take a bullet for this dude. And it's the craziest part, because I met him in the smoke pit.
Yep.
And that's where I've met some of the craziest, best people. And I always think that's funny. Jake, you were about to say something too, man. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, it's all good, man. Gotta get the dynamic down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never really smoked outside of a bar, but I've spent hundreds of hours in the smoke pit. Oh, because even if you don't smoke, there's always that guy, like you said, oh, smoke? It's I go for a break.
Yeah, I don't want to sit in the fucking office.
Exactly. You telling me I could just hold a cigarette and I get a break? All right, I'll go.
Yeah, it's a cheat code, dude.
And then you talked about, you hit it around the head, Mike, talking about deployed. The best part about deploy is, not to one-up Josh here, but when you get into these tit-for-tat arguments, when you're deployed, you don't get to go to Google to prove yourself right. You just got to argue harder.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I remember one time we were arguing at a pit, and this was stateside, and I actually went and changed a Wikipedia page to try to win an argument one time, and that was back in my day. That's when How I Met Your Mother was really popular. So we would do slap bets on shit. So if we got into an argument,
absolutely,
at the smoke pit,
we
would be like, okay, slap bet, and be like, all right. I didn't want to get fucking slapped because, look, literally nobody is holding back on one of those. Yeah. And I went and changed a Wikipedia page, and they found out about it. So I got like triple slapped from everybody. But that was like the only way I could win arguments is like by trying to go and adjust Google settings. I won a few of them, but yeah, like you have to actually know your shit. I miss pre-Google days when like nobody, like I've always loved to read a lot of shit, and I pride myself on being able to know a lot of shit just from reading. That's the best piece of advice anybody ever gave me. I had one friend who he knew trivia like nobody's business. He's one of the smartest dudes I've ever met. Dude's a damn doctor now. And I'm like, dude, how did you get so smart? He's like, I literally just read all the time. So I started reading a bunch. And so that made me that I started getting a lot of knowledge. And I pride myself on being able to have that. It's like, it's my most toxic trait is trying not to be the well actually guy. But everybody fucking has Google on their damn phones now. And so everybody can know as much as I do. And it pisses me off.
But you know what gets on my nerves, man, and I've talked about it multiple times, is when you go to have a conversation with somebody and you say, hey, man, what about this? What do you think about this? What is this? And they go, I don't know, Google it.
Yeah,
That makes me not want to talk to you ever again. I will never, if I ask you a question and you tell me to Google it, I'm never asking you a question ever again. It's over, dude.
At least be polite about it. You can be like, I don't know. Maybe we should Google it. Or I think it's this. Maybe we should look it up. Don't just be like,
I want to talk.
Just like
Google it.
My dad doesn't even say
way
that.
to end the conversation.
My dad just says GTS. If I ask him a question, he says GTS. Google that shit. I'm like, that shit. You, dude, so just tell me.
I had a couple guys on my ship go through a phase. So I'm sure at some point you've dealt with the guys who always give people shit for the ATM machine, right? Mm-hmm. The automatic teller machine. So we, because ATM is automatic teller machine, but people always say ATM machine, even though it's wrong. But
it's like cat card.
Yeah, exactly. Cat card, another great example. So we had a guy on my ship that used to always say GTS that shit.
Yeah, oh God.
Hey, yo,
Google
GTS,
that shit.
Google that shit.
Google that shit, comma, that shit. It's just a real emphasis on that shit part.
Yeah. All right. And then Jake, I'm gonna hand over the rest of the questions to you after this one, man. But I kind of want to start cutting deep just a little bit, right? You, Josh, you talked about the transition in the civilian sector, right, was a little bit tougher for you, right? And you kind of didn't know where you're at, what you wanted to do, and it's extremely relatable for a lot of folks, right? Yep. What did that process look like for you when you started finding your way? What was your support tools? How did you go about that?
I mean, the biggest thing was my wife and my kids, right? Like that was being able to come back to Houston where we had a support system with her side of the family. I was trying to get as far away from my side of the family, aside from like my brother and my dad. I was trying to get as far away from them as I could. But I've always really enjoyed and loved my wife's family. And so we had a support system here that helped, and having my wife and kids help. But it's when you put your heart and soul into something, even for the short amount of time. Like I was only in the Air Force for half as many years as I've been, or almost half as many years as I've been out now, and as I've been back in Texas, and I still feel like my time, that 6 years that I spent with the brothers and the sisters that I made, they're not friends to me. That's their brothers and sisters. I still feel like that's triple or quadruple the time that I've spent in the last 11 years since I've been out, and they're still the closest people to me in my life. Those are still my best friends. And there's just so many things when you get out, when you put your heart and soul into those relationships and into that job, and you live and breathe it, right? Like when you're doing a job, it doesn't matter what job, when you're doing it in the military, you are a part of something. You feel like you're a part of something. You're a part of something, and it gives you a sense of pride, and it gives you a sense of belonging, and it gives you a sense of self, right? And you know who you are within that system. And then when that system's not necessarily ripped away from you, but like when you even if you rip that system out of you, it leaves a hole. And that's what I felt like for the first few years that I was out, is like I moved home, and I guess I was kind of almost in shock. Like I didn't realize what exactly was going to happen, what exactly it would mean whenever I got out and tried to transition back into civilian life. And I spent 3 years really just testing the waters of a bunch of different things. You know, what do I got into school and I started going to school, but then it's weird because like I'm 25 at the time and I'm going to school with a bunch, or I guess I was 24 when I first got out, and I'm going to school with a bunch of 18-year-olds, you know, because I had a few credits under my belt and I had taken a few classes and I had done some stuff with APUS and things like that. But I still had to take a lot of basics and I still had to go in classes with with some younger people. And it was just like, the hardest part was not making connections with people. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really difficult, more so than anybody else, people who have to live the military life, veterans and active duty military reservists, and like, you have to learn how to compartmentalize relationships, right? We just talked about it a minute ago. You're constantly going from here to there. People are into your life and out of your life all the time, and whether you keep up with them or not, it is what it is. It's part of the life. So you have to learn how to compartmentalize relationships. And one of the most difficult things for me when I got out was like forming new relationships in the community that I was in. But the problem was like, these aren't people who know how to compartmentalize. And so for when I was into a class and out of a class, I didn't form lasting relationships with these people because I thought about it kind of like a TDY, right? Yeah. Like, okay, I'm in this class for 6 months and then I'm going to be in a new class with a new group of people, and I don't need to establish any of long lasting relationships with any of these people. Because in my mind, I already had my friend group. I didn't want to put in the time, the effort that it takes to like establish those relationships. And I think that was one of the biggest pitfalls that I fell into, is not being open to trying to find friends, trying to find a group. And I just didn't know where I belonged anymore. I didn't know what group I belonged to. Like, I knew I was a father, I knew I was a husband, but you have to have an identity outside of those things. And when you spend 6 years being a part of a mission, whatever that mission is, and now all of a sudden you don't have that, you're just like, well, shit, what am I? So like, I did some weird stuff, man. And one of the weird things too about when you separate, right, is it's almost like an Arrested Development type of thing. Because I went into the Air Force when I was 18, and I got out whenever I was I was 25 when I got out, because I was 19 when I went in. So I went in when I was 19, I got out when I was 25. My personality had changed, but like aspects of me, the clothes that I decided to wear, the things that I wanted, I went right back to like what I was wearing and how I was acting for a little bit, like when I was 19 when I joined. So then I'm like, what do I can't just wear an undershirt and fucking athletic shorts every single day. So then all of a sudden I'm like buying jeans I would have worn when I was 19 and trying to wear etnies and shit like that again, you know. And I'm like, I'm a 25-year-old dad. I'm supposed to be wearing New Balances and cargo shorts. What's happening? And so like I had to figure out who I was, you know, like what kind of aesthetic that I wanted to have, what I wanted to look like, and how I was going to try to fit into society through that. And one of the biggest things is like, I'm just a huge game. I love video games. I love nerd shit. I love geek shit. And a lot of the resources, especially here in Texas, a lot of the resources are like, there's a veteran group, they go hunting together, which I love hunting, but I have a group that I go hunting with. I have family that I go hunting with. I like hunting. I don't love hunting. Right. There's a veteran group, they go on these fishing trips or they go on these camping trips. And in Texas, that stuff's big. That's awesome. And I think that's really cool that they have a lot of groups like that. But one of the biggest things that I was missing, and what I wish I would have had, and where I think Regiment fills a void that's there nationwide, is like, where's my group of people that want to play D&D and MTG and video games and talk about why everybody's crazy that they think Thor: Love and Thunder is bad. Like, that's the shit that I love to talk about. Those are the things that I want. I will go hunting, I will go fishing, but the stuff that I want to, it's like I'm a fan of going to like card shops and hobby shops. I want to go shoot the shit with other people who love to play Warhammer 40K, right? Yeah. I love those groups, and I didn't really have that. And there has been no, until this point, resource for veterans to find that community. And so for the longest time, what's funny is when I got into radio and I finally got my internship in radio, that's where I found my people, right? And that's where I finally found, it took me 3 years, but I found my mission. I found where I belonged. I found what I wanted to do. And I fell into this groove of, okay, this is who I'm becoming, this is who I am, this is my mission, this is where we're going.
Yeah.
And but that has its own pitfalls too, because I found my mission. I'm like, okay, I'm going to become a daily host in sports radio in Houston. That's my mission. So I started working 6-7 days a week, and I was working. There were times especially on the weekends, where I'd high five my wife and kids, because I worked the night show. I was the host for the night show for quite a few years, co-host, and then I hosted my own show at nights for a real long time. So I'd high five my family on the way out the door, and I'd work until 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd come home, I'd go to sleep, and they'd be gone before I'd wake up in the morning. Or like I had to take my kids to stuff, but I'd take them to school. And so that ended up being a thing. I was covering the Texans, the Rockets, the Astros. I was doing Texans games on Sundays. I was doing my own show on Saturdays. So I'd wake up at 8 a.m., have breakfast with them, go do a show, come back at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, have a few hours, go to bed, wake up, and go do Texans all day. Because when you cover the Texans, you show up 2 hours before the game. You have the 3-hour game, and then you're there 3 to 4 hours after the game, getting audio, writing articles. And so what I realized I was doing, and why I wanted to go into streaming, and why I wanted to go into freelance, I realized that I was doing the exact thing I had gotten out of the military to avoid. So I found my mission, but because I had found a mission and I went full bore into it, I was working 6-7 days a week, high-fiving my family, seeing them for like 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours a week. And then I was like falling into that mission that I had given myself. And so that was another pitfall that I found. So it's like trying to find that balance, right? Trying to find that balance of the community that I belong to, that mission that I wanted to find. So I got into freelance work, and for the longest time, I knew like I wanted to help other veterans, other people that were separating and trying to transition into civilian life. I wanted to help them find that group and find their way, so they can try to avoid pitfalls of transition as best as they could, while also being able to have a support system in video games and have a place where they can go play MTG and D&D and stuff like that. And right as I was making the transition from radio to esports and freelance work, and I was thinking about trying to create this resource, especially just here in Houston specifically, well, that's when all of a sudden Regiment showed up. And Entourage reached out to me and DM'd me on Twitter and was like, hey, you need to check out Regiment. And seeing the growth of Regiment over the last 2 years has been incredible, because it's that resource that I wish I would have had when I got out. It was that community that I wished I would have had whenever I got out, and it's helped so many people, not just veterans, not just people separating, but active duty and everything. So yeah, it's been transition is hard, and trying to figure out what you want to be and who you want to be is difficult, because you have to find that new mission, you have to find that new purpose, and you have to find where you fit in. And the best thing you can do is be open to new relationships, be open to creating that support system, and ask other people for help, because that's what I didn't do. To this day, I still have not gone to a VA office, and it's been 11 years. Never gone to a VA office, which is a mistake, and I should have. And I'm always somebody who I struggle to ask for help when I need it, and I know I need it, or I try to avoid the fact that I need it. But creating that support system and asking people who have gone through it, who have the experience, for help, I think is the most important thing anybody can do when they're trying to transition from military life to civilian life.
Dude,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I loved every second of that. I want to tackle 2 brief things, and then
Okay.
Jake, I want you to take over, because I have to run to the restroom. Incredibly unprofessional.
No worries.
I gotta go. Man.
Oh, how dare you!
How dare! So first of all, man, you mentioned balance, which was huge,
Yep.
man. Balance is like the biggest thing, and I still remember when I was a kid, man. My pops was like, "Look, man." When I would play Halo 3 all day, and he'd be like, you gotta feel the dog bowls. And I'm like, what? No, I'm in the middle of this. And he's like, kid, I'm telling you right now, you need to learn balance, because if you don't learn balance, you're not gonna be able to do everything you want, okay? If you do not take care of the dog bowls, you will not be playing video games. Oh, okay, understood. Now, if you take care of the dog bowls and get them done at a proper time, then I have uninterrupted gaming time, right? So balance in general. My dad said, if you can balance, you can do whatever you want in life. And I love that word, because I think it just gets so like washed down, and people are like, balance, right? But I love that you said it, man. Second of all, man to man, dude, I'm incredibly proud of you. Like, I really am, because I'm 24, just turned 24. Almost 5 years in now, and I'm kind of starting to get into that situation where, but that's a problem with a lot of this younger generation, and I'm trying to listen to podcasts and read and really just get out of this little hump that I'm in, right?
Yep.
But it's that whole being young and thinking you have to have it all figured out, which is completely wrong. And I need to get myself completely out of that phase, but I'm starting to get into that where like, I need to know what I am. I need to know what I need to do. But it's like, I still got it. I'm still in like trying to figure it all out, right? But I'm going to leave it off with that. Jake, I want you to take over, big dog. And then you're going to take us home, all right?
Yeah. So piggybacking on what Mike was talking about, and I agree with him. Like you've come such a long way from getting out at 25, and I mean, you're in the phase just past me. I got out this last spring, so I started a new job, and I'm kind of just trying to move into that. I'm actually going to be moving here in a couple weeks to relocate for that job. I'm working remote right now, but some of the things you talked about, like working with the VA to get the resources and the assistance that people need, that is such a huge resource. And while I'm regretful for you that you didn't have that, you didn't get that assistance from there, you were able to get past the issues and the struggles that you had, and you were able to come out on the other side of it, and you're doing so well for yourself. You know, your family, everything is flourishing for you, and I'm so glad that that's going on for you. And that's part of also why I really appreciate Regiment is you, on the one hand, you have that community and you have that resource. And even if you don't go to events, like you talked about people in Houston and things like that, doing the social events, while some people enjoy doing that and will do that on the week to week, there's also just the pure community aspect where you can just have a conversation with someone who, while they may not have the exact same interests as you still have that commonality of experience that separates them from that group you talked about being in college with, because there's just a mountain of difference in what you've gone through in your life than what most of them have, especially given, not just because of age, but just the things that you go through, the people that you have to deal with, the struggles, the stresses that come with this service. And that's not people who serve in combat or all these things, and and that's not even what I'm talking about. There's so many things beyond just combat and being deployed that go into it, because the service is so much more than that.
Well, even when you're not deployed, even when you're not in combat, there is still there's always that underlying feeling of I'm not my own. Not necessarily always in a bad way, but like you could get called in at any moment for anything. You know that you are their asset, right? And knowing that, there's always that underlying sense of anxiety and that like kind of like not necessarily on edge, but always at alert. Like, right, there's always that little bit of alert to be prepared for any moment, because you could just be like, all right, this wasn't planned, now I'm going, and there's nothing that it happens so fast you don't have time to process it. And so I talked about compartmentalization. We learn to compartmentalize those feelings. Like, I do that today. When shit hits the fan or something goes crazy, I immediately go into I'm in go mode, right? And you learn to compartmentalize the emotions, and you're just like, okay, I'm not thinking about why this sucks or why this is difficult or anything like this. I'm immediately in what needs to get taken care of right now.
Exactly.
And that's something that I'll tell you right now, like with Mike, with you being in, Jake, with you just getting out, that never goes away. You're going to have that. And I think it is, while sometimes it can get us into trouble in some situations, because people are like, well, why are you so calculated? Do you not feel any, like, my mom passed away.
Emotions anymore?
Right. Yeah. My mom passed away not that long ago. And the way I dealt with it is I have dark humor. I told some jokes but it was more about like, okay, how do we deal with everything now moving forward? And people are like, I mean, do you not even care? I'm like, yeah, of course I care. But like, I can't go change that. I have to figure out what we're doing right now, and I'll deal with the emotions myself later on. I'll talk to I don't need to sit here and cry for you, Aunt whoever. Like, that's not what my job is right now. Your job is to console me. I'm not supposed to be holding you and helping you right now. I'm trying to figure out what the fuck we're supposed to do while we're handling the business, and that can get you in trouble sometimes. But I can say this, since I have gotten out, the one thing that has helped me accomplish everything that I've accomplished has been that skill, the ability to compartmentalize and get a mission done no matter what. And yes, there are pitfalls, and yes, it can get you in some shitty situations, But I've interviewed Shaq. I've interviewed Dak Prescott. I've interviewed Jerry Jones, Ezekiel Elliott. I've been able to cover 2 Super Bowls. I out in Atlanta, I got to interview Ray Lewis and Kurt Warner. Like I've been able to rub elbows with and do some really cool things because of that ability to get shit done. Like to be able to say, okay, I know I want to do this. Here's how I'm gonna do it. It's gonna suck. I'm going to put all those emotions in the back of my head, and then I'm going to let that mission take over right now. And it's helped me accomplish so many different amazing things where it's like a lot of people, one of the biggest things is when people tell me you can't do that. Like that's what kicks it into gear almost instantly. When somebody's like, I had a family member, when I said I wanted to get on radio, they're like, no, it's too hard. It's too difficult. Like you can't get into it. I'm like, okay, well now I have to. One of my best friends out of high school is like, oh, that'd be great. You'd be great at that. You just need to completely change your voice. I'm like, fuck you.
You need to change your voice.
Yeah,
no,
you need to change your voice. I actually, so Nick Wright, who's on First Things First, my internship in radio was for him when he was at Sports Radio 610 doing the morning show there. And Nick, I would go to lunch with him. I'd pick his brain all the time. And one of the things I asked him one time is, do I need to change my voice? He's like, have you heard me talk? Like, if you've ever heard Nick Wright talk, he's got a high pitched voice. He's like, have you heard me talk? No, just be you. But when people tell me I can't do something, or people tell me, no, that's not, you can't accomplish that, or you're not going to be able to do that, or there's no way that's going to happen, that kicks the stubbornness and that mission minded mindset into high gear. And I've been able to do some really cool things. So it never goes away. That compartmentalization never goes away, but it is probably the single most useful tool that I've brought with me from my time in the military to the civilian world that's helped me be successful. And I think when we talk about things like suicide rates and depression and PTSD, I think that's also there. Those are some of the pitfalls that go along with that mindset, and those can be really, really prevalent. But there are silver linings, there are positive things that can come from that too.
Yeah. And you touched on the PTSD and depression, and that is the other thing with I love about Regiment is it's not just about gaming, because there's that community. There are resources there that will like. Yep. I see people not daily, but on a regular basis that will reach out like, hey, I'm having some issues. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not obviously don't get in specifics, but then there are people who will reach out like, hey, either there's someone that they can talk to, or they will give them the path or the information to get to that point so they can get the help, whether it's or somebody, they're stressed and need something. Too. Absolutely,
I've seen people they'll get in and they'll do their little chat, and it'll say like, I need help with this, or come in and help me out with this. And I remember joining one, and this dude went off forever, and I was like, man, I'm telling you, man, Regiment's doing something incredible, man, for military and alike. It's incredible. But,
well, and it's not even just being able. Obviously, that's huge, being able to go in and say, I need help, right? And I think one of the biggest, I've had my moments since I've had a multitude of different moments since I separated, where it's been like, you get into some of these really cynical viewpoints. You get into this really pessimistic doom cycle, and shit can get really real and really serious. And especially those first few years of my separation, I really struggled a lot. But one of the biggest things is just being able to go into the Discord and just see. You don't even have to talk. You don't even have to interact. You don't even have to type anything. But to just go into the Discord and see like, okay, what's everybody talking about today? Yeah. And you see it's a bunch of people that are like you, that have the same mindset, that are saying the same things as you, or they're having the same conversation as you. And that, even just that little bit, even just that can be like a breath of fresh air. And be like, you know what? Okay, there are one of the biggest things. One of my friends, he deals with depression, and I'm not gonna say any names. He's in the media industry as well. He battles with mental illness and depression all the time. And one of the biggest things when he is at his worst, he goes onto Twitter and he says, "You are not alone." And it's almost like he's reminding himself and telling other people. But other people see that sometimes, and they'll DM him saying like, you literally saved my life. And I think that's one of the biggest things that Regiment's doing, is it's reminding people you're not alone. There are people that you may not even know well they're there for you, that they're gonna help you. Maybe you can get to know them. Maybe you can. It creates that. I talked about finding that support group and finding those friends when you get out. It's a built-in support group. It's built-in friends. It's like when you're having a shitty day and you walk up to, again, to call back, you walk up to the smoke pit and two of your friends are having the same argument they've had for the last 3 years. And you just sit back and just kind of listen and laugh because they're saying the same shit they've been saying for the last 3 years. And it's just like,
I'm telling you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the guys who are arguing about the wicked. She was the Wicked Witch of the East, dog. Tell me I'm wrong.
Favorite thing, dude, my favorite thing in the smoke pit is you got the cigarette right here, and it's this because it reminds me kind of Leonardo DiCaprio when he's pointing at the TV like, ooh,
yeah,
ooh.
Ooh,
like I love that scene. But it's when somebody has a cigarette and goes like this and goes wrong.
Yeah,
that's how you know it's about to get good, dude.
Yeah,
wrong.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, and you see the same shit in the regiment Discord, and even just like there are times where I'm having a bad day, and I don't interact like on Twitch, which is gonna sound awful as somebody who's like trying to make a career of streaming, but on Twitch I typically don't interact. I like to lurk. I've done this since before I even started streaming, but I like to go into streams and I just like to hang out, and every once in a while I might say something, but I'm kind of like for what I do and the career that I'm in, I'm really introverted, so I like to just kind of sit back and observe, and I like to see the conversations that are happening, and I do the same thing on the regiment Discord. I'll just go in and I'll hang out and I'll look at the conversations and laugh at some of the comments and laugh at some of the ridiculousness of some of the arguments, but it reminds you, it makes me feel like back in the day when I was just shooting the shit with my buddies. And I love that. I think that's wildly important, even just that from regiment on top of everything else that they're doing. I think that's important.
It's crazy to hear you say that though too, because you being being a podcaster, being into sports radio, and being into everything like that. Because for me, man, I'm a giver, like over giver, right?
Yeah.
But I just got done doing a TikTok video the other day, kind of talking about this, man, and I think it's true. If you give people 100%, you get 100%. Is it always going to happen? No, it's not always going to happen. But that's life. That is human error. That is the way it goes, right? People will do you wrong. That is human error, right? But giving people, man, I want to be able to go home at the end of the day and be like, you know what? Everybody that I encountered today, I gave them my 100%.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And you take that home, and that aids in my self-love. And self-love is so important, man. But I've always been such a giver, dude. I always want to go in somewhere, and I just want to be like, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Keep doing it. Because when you actually see it in somebody, dude, there's nothing better to me than that. Being able to be like, I can see that you love what you're doing, and I'm so proud of you. Like, keep doing it, right? And that's just kind of always been my thing. And I'm hoping someday I can get somewhere to where I can really help out, man, because that's all I want to do is I want to help. That's why I make the music. That's why I do what I do, because I want to help, right? But I just kind of wanted to slip that in there just because I just think it's interesting.
All right. Well, just to put the cherry on this before we move on, I want to say that whether you're in the service or you're on the civilian sector, what have you, and you're at your best, you're at your worst, don't shut people out. You got to have somebody you can talk to, someone who will listen to you, even if it's just sitting in a quiet room together with someone. You need to have someone who can be there to support you in some ways, some sort of fashion, so that you're not alone and you don't feel alone. Yeah. But
dude, I have my shit talk buddy. You know what I'm saying? You gotta have one of those, man. Because I'm going through something myself right now, man. And the first person I thought about is I need to call him because he's probably been waiting for this moment his entire life, man. And I called him, and it was awesome. But yeah, I like that you mentioned that. That's very good.
So we'll move on to the fun part. Josh, if you want to take a sec, talk about this cool job you got. Your casting events, you're getting into streaming, all this stuff, and you're meeting all these big names. Tell us about it.
I've like I said early on, like when I got out of the military, I realized, okay, I've done the serious career. I want to have fun now, and I want my career and I want my career life to be what I'm passionate about, and I'm passionate about sports. I tell people all the time I'm just a stained glass window. Like I'm there's not a lot of depth. I'm really pretty, but there's not a lot of depth. Like it looks, but I say that it's not the pretty part. It's like I know a lot about sports and I know a lot about video games, and everything else is just not there. But I like if you try to come up to me and have a conversation with me, I can talk about a bunch of different subjects to a certain extent, like small talk wise, but it's not going to go very far because I don't care enough about anything else. But by God, if you come and tell me why you love Ghost of Tsushima, you better be ready for a 3-hour conversation because we're going to talk about it. You know what I mean? If you come up to me and you say, well, what do you think is going to happen with the Philadelphia Eagles this year? As a Cowboys fan, I'm not going to be very nice, but as an attempt at an unbiased journalist and sports commentator, I will break it down. And again, you better be ready for a 3-hour conversation. And those are the things that I love the most. I love sports and I love video games. And so my entire mission, once I figured out what it was, I remember I was sitting on the couch with my wife and we were watching. I'm a huge Mavericks fan. We have been absolutely blessed to move on from Dirk Nowitzki to Luka Doncic, and I love it. We had to go through the OJ Mayo year, and I was sitting there with my wife, and I'm like, OJ Mayo, he hasn't gotten better offensively, but defensively, you look at him, he's gotten great. And he's getting so low in his stance. He's transitioning well. And then literally right after that, the commentator's like, God, OJ Mayo, his defense looks so much better. He's getting low in his stance. He's on transition defense really well. He's switching really well. And my wife is like, that's literally what you just said. And I'm like, I know. And yeah, I know. And she's like, why don't you do that? I'm like, what, go play basketball? No, I'm pretty sure I'm too short for that. She's like, no, why don't you go try to be a sports commentator? And when I first got out, I was going to school to either be an accountant or get in, go computer science and try to make video games, do coding, whatever. And I was like, no, it would never work. I can't do that. She's like, no, try it. Do it. And that set me on the path that I've been on forever. And I realized, like, yeah, I've always wanted to be in radio. When I was a kid, I would create my own radio shows. Like, I'd do my own radio recordings. Back in the day when we had cassette tapes, gentlemen, I would record like mixtapes and radio shows on cassette tapes. Yeah. And I always wanted to do that. I listened to sports radio growing up in Dallas. I listened to talk radio growing up. I was a middle schooler listening to the Russ Martin show in Dallas, which is just like essentially Dallas's version of the Howard Stern show. And I was way too young when I watched Private Parts, which is the Howard Stern movie. But I wanted to do that. I watched Frasier, and I'm like, why can't I also be a radio psychiatrist in Seattle, which is my favorite sitcom of all time, by the way. And so I knew from a young age I either wanted to be a stand-up comic or I wanted to be in radio. And when my wife said that, I'm like, you know what? Why don't I do that? And so my entire mission has been that, and trying to talk about the things that I love. And I've had a blast, man. I one of the things I've loved about my career is I've been able to just adapt. That adaptability that we talk about with the military, it makes it way easier in that career because you have to adapt all the time. One of the things that I hate, though, when you're talking about support systems and friends coming and going, is it put me right back in that world. But this time, in the military, it's like friends come and go, but you're always supporting each other and you're always happy for each other, and you're not really competing with each other. This time you add in an element of competition, because your best friends that are coming and going are the people that you're competing for with jobs. And so you have to hope. It's weird, not really hope, but like your success or your opportunity comes from their failure. And it was a really weird thing that was very hard for me in the industry. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to transition into doing freelance stuff and doing my own thing and trying to create this sports talk niche on Twitch that isn't there, and it's just starting to be there, but it's still not there for the most part, is because I don't have to worry about competition. I don't have to worry about hoping for my friend's failure for my opportunity. But I've got to do some cool things, and I love talking sports. I love talking video games, and to be able to go from doing the things that I talk about, like being able to cover Super Bowls and go to Radio Rows and do these interviews with these guys who I grew up watching that are legends, icons in football and basketball, and then be able to take that success and transition it into what I've been able to do on Twitch. And I'm still growing. Like, I'm a partner, but the community is definitely growing, and it's constantly like getting more people coming in. Last football season was huge. Hopefully the football season this year is going to be huge again. But being able to do something like co-stream Thursday Night Football. At one point, there was a game last year where I was at Disney World because my dad and my stepmom flew everybody out for Christmas to Disney World. I was at Disney World streaming from my laptop doing a Thursday Night Football co-stream, And I'm like, we had this prediction game that was, because there's about like, I think 20 streamers on Twitch who have the rights to be able to co-stream Thursday Night Football, who the NFL approved. And I'm sitting there doing this, and I had this surreal moment where I'm like sitting in this room in Disney World with like cool shit behind me. I just spent all day at the park, and now all of a sudden I'm doing something for the NFL and getting paid for it. And I'm doing it against the likes of Grand Pooh Bear, who I've gotten to know really well. I've been watching him in GDQ and other stuff for a long time. I was doing it with Nick Merckx, Khalif Adams, like all these different big names of people that I've admired, streamers. TSM Vis, who was somebody I watched when Apex Legends first came out, and he dove real hard into Apex. I watched Vis all the time. Well, I'm seeing my name up there with in the predictions game with Vis and Grand Pooh Bear and Nick Merckx. I'm like, what is happening right now? This is nuts. And so like, I've been able to, and I'm well on my way. My ideal dream scenario is to do a sports talk show on the radio in the morning and stream at night, or like midday show, like from 10 to 2, 10 to 1, and then stream at night. And I just got done filling in and doing some fill-in work and working with ESPN here in Houston. Some really good things might be coming from that. And I was doing a show 10 to 12, and then I was doing my Twitch streams at night. And it's like, it is very cool what you can accomplish when you just say, fuck it, I want to do this. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people get so discouraged by little bumps and little bruises and little failures, and it's hard. It is discouraging, and it's tough. But one of the biggest things that I've learned in the last 8 years that I've been doing this is push through those walls. When those walls come up, you fucking knock them down. When somebody tries to shut the door, you shove your foot in the door, you say, that's not happening. And you just have to power through it. Whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that you want to accomplish, ultimately it is up to you whether or not you do that. And I've had people tell me, this won't happen, you can't do this isn't going to work. One of my friends in radio told me for years, this back in 2015, 2016, I talked about wanting to bring some sports talk to Twitch, and multiple people are like, nobody will watch it, nobody cares, nobody wants to do that. And then last year, during one of my Thursday Night Football streams, he texted me and he was like, man, I was wrong, you're killing it. And that's kind of that cool thing where it's like, people are always going to tell you no. And people are always going to tell you, you can't do this. And there's always going to be situations or pandemics that might screw things up, like random things that end up coming in, getting in your way. And as long as you continue to have faith in yourself and you keep pushing through those walls, you're going to be able to accomplish anything you can. And I think that's been one of the coolest things, is being able to say, you know what? All right, let's adapt, let's overcome, and let's figure out where we go next. And that's helped me do a lot of the cool shit that I've done so far.
Dude,
that was a fantastic story. That was, you talk about an inspiring note to end on. That was great.
Well, and the being able to come up with conversation on video games, right? They always tell you, man, if you go on a date, don't talk about video games, right? I'm telling you right now, dude, if I go on a date, because it's happened and I do it, and she mentions Halo, I go,
yeah, excuse me, what? Oh, I have a fun story for that, actually. So my wife when I met her before, this was I was already in the DEP program. I knew I was going into the Air Force, but I met her at a party in College Station where Texas A&M is. She was going to Texas A&M. Yeah. I was there visiting a friend. And we were at a party, and we had kind of met. Though I heard her behind me. My friend's 6'7", real big, 6'7", like 275 pounds, real big MFer, you know. And I'm peeing in the bushes, right? Because that's what you do when you're at a college party. And I hear this voice behind me go, "You're really tall. Will you be my tall friend?" And so, like, I had to meet this voice. So I turn around, I zip up, stop peeing. Well, hold on, let me.
He turned around first.
Yeah, sorry. I zipped up. The chronology of that is up. I quit peeing, zipped up, then turned around. But so I started talking to who is the woman who is now my wife, and we were just sitting there bullshitting and talking. And I started. I was drunk, and my obsession was Halo at the time, dude. I was just fresh. I wasn't that far out of high school. The way I made money in high school is I didn't work a job. I hustled people. I won small tournaments and hustled people out of money in Halo. until I lost to the number 3 ranked Halo Combat Evolved player in the world in Grapevine, and it made me want to quit because I was like, he was light years better than me. Like I thought I was God's gift to Halo, and then he just ripped me apart. I'm like, well, this is not my path. So we're sitting there talking, and I start talking about Halo, and she goes, "Oh, I'd kick your ass at Halo." Instantly kissed her, bro. Like I'm drunk. She said she kicked my ass at Halo. Didn't even hesitate. Instantly went in for the kiss. Yeah. She tricked me though, because she doesn't actually play video games. She doesn't like playing video games outside of Nintendo, and she's never played Halo. Actually, that's a lie. I made her play Halo one time, and she was garbage at it. But yeah, dude, I'm right there with you. Like my wife hooked me by tricking me into thinking she loved Halo.
I love it, man. Oh, that's good. I think there was I can't say it word for word, but I like when you started talking about like whatever you want to do, just fucking do it, man.
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing is just do it, man. People are gonna tell you can't do it, but first of all, your voice not being there is not the prime thing, okay? You can have a good voice, and oh my goodness. So growing up, my dad used to he likes to listen to the Diamondback games, right?
Yep.
I like to watch them, but I have now become, I want to listen to it too, because growing up, and I miss it. I love it, man. Just hearing a Diamondbacks game on the radio now is just nostalgic, right? But there was always this one caster that would come on, and he'd have like a semi-good voice, but he'd be like, hot dogs. And I'm like, what is he talking about when they're literally at bat right now, right? If you don't know what you're talking about, that's the main thing that will immediately, you can have a weird voice, but if you're hitting me with some like facts, I'm like, hey yo, I'm here for this. You know what I'm saying? I'm here for this. But exactly, just do it. Just do it, and just keep doing it. But I can't remember all 3 of them, but it's the first 2 that like have stuck with me. But it's not, he talked about this individual, I can't word for word, okay? But talked about like, you're talking about the tip top dogs, right? They don't use the term grind or hustle or whatever. It's full engagement. Yep. And then it's finding joy. And there was a third one that I can't remember, but when I heard full engagement and finding joy, I was like, oh my God, that's it, dude. Yep. Like go full force and then find your joy, man. Enjoy what you are doing.
Yep. Gary Vee talks about it all the time. Find your process. What's your process for what you're doing? And like, like Gary Vee is one of those guys who I think he's incredible, and he's been incredibly successful. I think people listen to him too much as gospel, but I think he's right on a lot of shit, right? Yeah. So like he talks about finding your process and enjoying that. Like you have to enjoy your process. Yeah. So if you're working a job that you hate, and it's just tearing you down, and you're making money but you don't, like, it's fine but you're unhappy, well, that's not your process, man. And everybody wants to talk about millennials and Gen Z being these generations that just don't want to work. Well, they don't want to work, they don't want to do hard jobs, they don't want to work, they don't care about that. No. We're realizing now that we have a choice. Like we can actually turn our passions into careers, right? And we can make money doing that. It still blows my dad's mind that I stream on Twitch and make money doing it. And he's like, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it. When we were at Disney World, right? And I had to do that stream. He was like, well, you can't hang out tonight. Why? I'm like, well, I have to do a stream on Twitch. And he's like, no, come on, come to dinner. Let's have drinks. Let's hang out. I'm like, I can't do that. I was like, if I do that, I'm going to lose a quarter of this next payment that the NFL is giving me. And he's like, wait, they're paying you for this? I'm like, yeah. And when he's like, how much are they paying you? And I told him, and he was like, get the Richard Pryor has a really good stand-up. Like when he told his dad how much money he made for the first movie he was in, his dad was like, get out of here, you motherfucker. You didn't make. That's how my dad is with the Twitch stuff. And when I told him like the amount of money that I've made doing this, and he's never really understood radio, he's never understood broadcasting and content creation and stuff like that. But because he worked his entire life, he worked a job he hated. He was really good at it, but he hated it, and it tore his body up. He was an AC and heating repairman, and he made a good life doing it, and he provided for his family, and he was very successful with it, but he hated it, and he didn't understand doing a job that was like, you just talk about sports, or you just stream video games, or you just stream a football game and talk about it. Doesn't make sense to him. And so we're in a time now in this insanely digitized age where we can have all of these jobs that are our passion and make money. Like affiliate marketing is a huge thing. You can find a way to make your passion your job. And if that's that's what brings you joy, and if that's the process that brings you joy, or if there's a more traditional job, like you want to go be a doctor, you want to go be a lawyer, anything that seems outlandish, like, no, I'll never accomplish that, say fuck that, you're gonna do it. Find your process, find your joy, and attack it full force with everything that you have, and you will thank yourself for it later. And that doesn't mean there won't be difficulties, it doesn't mean that it won't be hard, it doesn't mean that there won't be bumps in the road, but those bumps are going to be worth it at the end of the day, because if you go and work a job for 30 years that you hate, and then all of a sudden you're like, what was it all for?
Yeah.
Well, if your joy is money and you just want to make money, shit, go find a badass sales job, make that your process.
Boom.
But if you want to find something that gives you fulfillment, and you want to find something that makes you happy, go do that.
Dude,
Yeah,
I'm so
and
glad you mentioned that too, Jay. I'm sorry to cut you off, man. Like,
You're good. You're good. You're good.
the gym, man. And if whoever hears this, man, 3 years ago when I was going to the gym, right? I went to the gym because I want to be strong. I want to be big. I want to be whatever. I started not liking the gym anymore because the process. And I was like, man, it's going to take a couple years before I get big, and seeing all these other people that are ahead of me, blah, blah, blah. 3 years later, I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm getting older. Maybe I'm becoming wiser. I don't know. Now I'm in love with the process.
Yep.
And one of the main things that's aided that is the fact that every single day that I go to the gym, I know that I'm working to better myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And someday it's going to pay off.
the
But
mindset.
the process, exactly, the process. And I absolutely love the pre-workout stage though, dude. On the way to the gym, and I'm just in the car like, and people are like next to me like, yeah, freaking out. And I'm just bawling, man. But like just the process of finding new workouts and tackling different muscles and really just getting into it, it's a beautiful thing. And I'm just glad that you mentioned the whole process portion.
Yeah, and you talked about there being a disconnect between the previous generation and the current ones with the way they look at work and getting a paycheck and all that stuff. And I think a lot of that stems from back then. A job and career, they were synonymous. There was no difference back then. You just, whatever you were in, that was just kind of, you'd work it till it ended or it ended you, and you just did the next thing. Whereas now, like you said, people are trying to branch out and pursue these things that may not be traditional jobs, and making them into careers, making them be something that can sustain themselves. And I'm glad you touched on the people who may not pursue, maybe they have a passion, but they don't want to turn that into a job. So they seek that outside, and they just work a job to make money. And I think that is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. But I think at the end of the day, if it isn't something that you enjoy, the joy that you can achieve on your own outside of your work, it needs to exceed what you go through for your job. Because if you work 50, 60 hours a week overtime, but you're bringing in, good 6-figure money, but that money isn't allowing you to fulfill yourself, you are wasting your life.
Yes. Well, and look, some people's joy might be with their family. Some people's joy might be in buying cool shit or going cool places, right? That might be their joy. Find that, right? And like you said, if you're working that job, like if you found that job where you're making 6 figures, and if that allows you to attack your joy, if that allows you to go take a family trip, or I've got a friend, he works his ass off and he doesn't necessarily love his job. He doesn't hate it. He doesn't love it. It's fine. But he's now in a management position. He makes well into the 6 figures. He was just in Belize like 3 weeks ago. Like he goes on cool trips and does cool things and goes cool places, has a nice house, has a great car. Like if that's your joy, then attack that, and the job can help facilitate that, right? Like a lot of people say, well, I'm going to find my process and my joy, and they think it's just their job or their career. But like you said, if you can make sure that in your life you're getting more joy out of the things that you're doing than not, then that's what you need to be doing. So if you have to work a job that you don't necessarily like, but it allows you to stream, or it allows you to take trips, or it allows you to buy awesome cars, or add to your gun collection, or buy a big MTG box, or whatever it is, right? Like then, and that brings you joy, and you get to take your spare time enjoying that and doing that, then do that. That's your process. It's just all about finding that. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and Mike, you touched on it too, because you talked about being younger and how you're supposed to have everything figured out. But no, like that's part of growing, not just age, like as a person and as like someone who's like part of like the world, is your mindset has to change. You can't think the same way at 30 that you think of at 25 or 20.
Yeah,
you have
what's
to.
Crazy with that is the best thing that I heard, man, was that if you figured everything out at age 24, then what are you going to do for the rest of your life?
Right.
You're going to figure out things as they go, right? I'm not supposed to know what I'm supposed to know at 30, at 25, right? Kind of to the degree where you're going. So I just, that's the best thing that I've heard so far, and it's sticking with me, man. If I figure it all out now, then what's the point? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But keep going, man. You're oh, yeah.
And you can't, and that's the other thing, is you can't surround yourself, like, and that's not to say get rid of your friends. Yeah. You can't just surround yourself with people who are at the same stage as you and aren't growing or anything, because you need to reach out and expand your circle, because the people that are bettering themselves will better you, because and it's not jealousy. It's not, oh, this guy has a nice car, fuck that guy, I want that car. It's this guy's doing better for himself. What can I do to mirror that success? And maybe what they're doing doesn't work for you, but that's part of that circle. You make that circle bigger. You might find some ideas, some things that they're doing, and maybe they are working a job that it's like, oh, that's a cool job. Maybe they can give me that in to give the foot in the door. And it's just and that is so much in life too. It's not always what can you do and what do you know. It's also who do you know, and that's.
But it's motivating too, right?
Circling back to the community regiment, you expand your circle, you expand your community. The more people you know, the more people that can help you on a personal, professional, and just everything in life just gets better. So just you gotta expand the circle.
The best phrase I've ever heard is from my wife's grandfather, and he said this early on. When other people are telling me don't go into radio, don't try to pursue this, he was the one that was telling me, why are you listening to people with smaller piles of money than you? And he said, listen to people and find people who have bigger piles of money than you. Don't ever listen to anybody who has a smaller pile of money. And he always told me, and like the big clarification is, it's not that money isn't necessarily money, right? That's just the phrase. But money could be like, why are you listening to people who are too afraid to take chances? Why are you listening to people who aren't willing to jump out and do something to better themselves?
Haven't even done it.
Right, exactly. Like they're saying no because they're too afraid, or they haven't, or they failed, right? That's not for you. You need to go go find the people who have bigger piles of money. Meaning, go find the person who's gone and done it. Go find the person who's gone out and try to accomplish their dreams and they did it, right? Go find those people. And that doesn't mean I have had to push people away before, especially negative people, where it's like you cannot have a joyful life. It's not even about success. It's not even about money or career or anything. You cannot have a joyful life if you constantly have negativity all around you. Yeah. And the more negativity you allow into your life, the more negativity is it's inherently going to rub off on you. And so I've had to distance myself from people before, because that negativity finds a way of seeping into your pores and doing a number on you. And so the best phrase I've ever heard is, find people with bigger piles of money than you. Why are you listening to people with smaller piles of money? And I think that's the best mantra anybody can go through, is like, what has this person done? If they're telling me no, you can't do this, what have they done? What have they accomplished in the world that I'm trying to go into, right? And if the answer is, well, they haven't done it, they've done none of this, they've done it out of fear, you can understand and empathize and where they're coming from, and say, look, I get it, I understand why you're saying that. Yeah. I'm just not going to listen to you, and I'm really sorry. And then you go find the people. Source. Right, exactly. Yeah. You go find the people who are credible.
And it blows my mind that so many people live with like that kind of negativity all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or like I got a buddy of mine who lives thinking that the government's trying to kill him all the time. And I'm like, how can you live your whole life doing that, dude? Just go find something to be happy about it.
Go wakeboarding. Okay? Just eat a burger. What's happening right now? Yeah.
The transmitters don't work in the water. You'll be fine.
Like it's ridiculous, man. But it's just like, you tell me something, right? You're like, hey, man, I want to go try to do this. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
Do it. Yep. Like, send it, Like, I'm the biggest hype man on the planet. You can tell me anything. And I'll be like, yeah. Unless you're like, I want to kill you, I'm not gonna be like, yeah.
Well, yeah. I have a friend right now, and he is one of my closest friends that I've met in the radio industry. And he went through a difficult career time where like he was trying to. He went to the WWE and was a ringside announcer for the WWE in their NXT for a while, and that just went very, very like he got screwed over at that job. It went really poorly, and it kind of messed him up for a while. And he was like, I don't even know if I should be even in this realm. Like, I don't know what I should do. I'm like, dude, you're wildly talented. You're going to find yourself. Now he's doing play-by-play for CBS in both college basketball and college football. And he just literally today flew to Bristol, Connecticut to go to the ESPN school to do ESPN overnights for their overnight sports center on a 60-day contract. And they were talking about like, I mean, he was the guy. He's like, I don't know. I'm like, dude, you're talented. You can do this. And that's what I always love being. Always try to be that for the people that you love, the people that you care about. Always try to be that source of positivity. Always try to be that source of joy. Never be that conduit of negativity, because and some people may mean well, right? Some people think, oh, I'm just trying to be real, or I'm just trying to keep their expectations realistic. It's like, no, man, that's not your job. It's the world's job. It's the universe's job to try to tear everybody down. As the support system for the people around you, it's your job to try to promote and hype and motivate these people. And then if there's a point where it's like it's detrimental to their person or to their health, then yeah, maybe say something. But if you're just saying it because you've never done it, or you're afraid, or you don't think they can, don't be that. Don't say anything at all if it's going to be like that. Because you never know what anybody can accomplish, as long as you're the person that you could be the one person that's like, no, dude, you're great. You're going to accomplish great things. Keep doing this. Yeah. And then that's the one thing they needed to push them further. And then the next day, 2 days later, a month later, a door opens up and they're walking right through it to exactly where they wanted to be. And that's what's so crazy. Nobody's timeline is ever the same. Everybody wants success now. Everybody wants it to happen now. You never know what your timeline is. It's always about being prepared to walk through the door when it's opened. And being the person that keeps people motivated and ready to walk through those doors is so invaluable.
You need to be willing to walk through when the time is too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I was just watching, well, you know what? I was going to say, I've been watching Baki on Netflix, but I don't want to. It's just one of those things where, like, you say that you're ready to do something, but are you sure you are ready to do it? Because when the time comes, you need to go, and you need to go strong, and you need to do it well. So, no, I love that, man. I absolutely love that. We're tiptoeing now over at an hour and 20 minutes right now. This has been an incredible.
I told you be ready for 3 hours. Be ready for 3 hours. Let's go. I'm just kidding.
Be ready for it. This has been an absolutely incredible episode, and I know we could probably go on for days and days and days. And honestly, this might even birth an episode 2 at some point in the line, to where we can actually really start deep diving into some of this content, because it's incredible. The stuff that we were saying is incredible. But Jake, let's take us out, and then I'll take us out with the sponsors, man, and then we'll all go on our merry way and take care of our lives.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Josh, for coming in. Josh, also known as Toofpete. Thanks for sitting down and talking with us. It was a pleasure having you, and like we said, we'd love to have you again. Hash things out, even if it's just to shoot the shit. Like the good old days. But that'll do it for this episode of the Smoke Pit, and thanks so much.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, guys. And you can catch me on the Regiment Twitch channel Sundays, 10 to 12 Eastern, 9 to 11 Central, as a part of the Regiment stream team. I'm the guy who I end your week and get you ready for a new badass week every single Sunday night. So come check me out on the Regiment Twitch channel.
I know I will be. It sounds great.
That was all right, man. That's what I'm talking about. And this is episode 1. We're wrapping up episode 1. We can't wait. It's going to be an incredible show. I can't wait to build more on this dynamic with Jake, man. We're trying to bring something special here for you folks, and really get down into some nitty gritty stuff, just so we can definitely get some lessons, you know what I'm saying, and really get down into that. Josh, sorry. Dude, once again, thanks for coming on the show. Incredible. Glad to have you on. Can you also plug your socials? We want to give you the opportunity to
plug I guess I'll do that too. So you can find me at twitch.tv/Toofpete, Toofpete. You can find me there. Right now it's a lot of video games, but I'm formulating my schedule for football season, and it's going to be a lot of football. A lot of me, a lot of football, but you can find me at twitch.tv/Toofpete Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 p.m. Central. That's 8 to 11 p.m. Central. And you can find me on Twitter at Josh Beard Radio and at Toofpete on every other platform.
Like a glove. So that'll wrap it up. Take care.
See you, everybody.
I'm horrible with goodbyes.